I met Ashley a few years back in a hostel in the jungle town of Puerto Maldonado in Peru. And we've been in touch over the years. And most recently, we just participated in a candle cleanse together in Colorado in the mountains. And we will forever join in that experience. When Ashley invited me to be a speaker at her Be the Change event, I had to laugh because even up to a few years ago, no one would have asked me to talk about being the change or living your passion or doing big things. I was just an ordinary person doing ordinary things. But that is what is so exciting about life, is we don't know what's around the corner. And for me, a trip to Peru in 2011 changed the course of my life and who I was as a person. Prior to this trip, if you had told me that I would be heading up a Canadian charity doing conservation in the Amazon rainforest, I would not have believed you. It was as if you could have said to me, pack your bags, Jana, you are going to the moon. Because prior to this trip, I lived my life in the most ordinary manner. And I was pretty much a scaredycat. As a child, I was scared of everything. You name it, I was scared of it. Spiders, dogs, the jungle gym at the playground, swimming without my life jacket, although I could swim perfectly well after years of swimming lessons. At overnight camp, my friends would be horseback riding, rock climbing, zip lining, and I would spend my days in the craft shack weaving macrame bracelets. At university, instead of trying new things and joining clubs, I watched a lot of TV. And I had my driver's license for 5 years before I had the courage to even try to drive on the highway.
You did awesome in Denver.
Thank you. And the fact that I was afraid to try new things didn't really bother me. I just figured that was who I was, the genetic cards that I was dealt with. But then something happened in the summer when I was 20, something that opened my eyes a little bit. My dad's company had its first staff family picnic, and a baseball game was arranged, and my team was starting on the outfield. And so I took my position nervously on the field, and my dad came running over to me, and he said, "Don't try and catch the ball. If it comes your way, let me catch it. I don't want you to get hurt." And it was at that moment I realized maybe I wasn't necessarily born a scaredycat. Maybe I learned to become one. So I started to think about things a little differently. But it took a long time for my inner warrior to come out. Initially, I followed a very conventional path. I worked in human resources. I married, we bought a house, I had 2 kids. I became a stay-at-home mom. And then everything changed in the year 2011 when I traveled to Peru. And this trip was at the invitation of a friend of mine who was celebrating a milestone birthday. And she wanted to do the trek to Machu Picchu. Now, at the time, I hadn't even heard of Machu Picchu, but I didn't care. I had been a stay-at-home mom for over a decade, and I needed an adventure. And when I looked at the map to see where was Machu Picchu, where were we going, I saw that it was right next door to the Amazon rainforest. So I called my friend, and I said, "Listen, we are going to be right next door to the Amazon rainforest. We'll probably never be in South America again. We have to add on a quick visit to see the Amazon." And so we did. And I'll never forget the first moment I stepped off the boat deep in the Amazon. I mean, the heat and humidity are incredible. But the noise, there was macaws screaming, there was monkeys howling, there were multicolored butterflies fluttering all around me, there was insects buzzing, there was leafcutter ants marching below me, and there were these huge trees that were being strangled by these large vines that looked like huge snakes. It was so unreal that I felt like I was on a Hollywood movie set. And we spent 3 days at an eco lodge, and our guide took us exploring the jungle, and it was wonderful. But it wasn't until I returned home to Canada that I realized how much of an impact that the rainforest had on me. There was something about it, and it was calling me to come back. And I knew I had to go back and explore some more. And so I went back 2 months later, and this time, instead of doing the touristy things, my guide wanted to show me what was really going on. And the reality was startling. I saw firsthand the destruction. I saw acres and acres of trees that had been chopped down. I saw this centuries-old ironwood tree that loggers chopped down with their chainsaw. And literally, this tree that was probably 300 years old, the chainsaw sliced through it within 5 minutes, and that was the end of it. And ironwood trees are being logged to extinction in the Amazon rainforest due to their economic value. And I learned that this was really sad because they are essential to the survival of the macaws. Because the ironwood trees take centuries to grow large enough for cavities to form in their trunks that the macaws use as nesting sites for decades. I learned that 10 years prior, this area called Tambopata had been a remote corner of the Amazon basin, unconnected to the rest of the world by road. But 2 events occurred in the last decade that changed this area forever. And the first was the building of the Interoceanic Highway. The Interoceanic Highway connects the Atlantic port in Brazil to the Pacific port in Peru, and it allows for Brazil to export its goods to India and China in a much easier, efficient manner. Slices right through the rainforest and right through Tambopata. And once this 2,575 kilometer highway opened in 2011, people began flocking to Tambopata to exploit the natural resources. And of course, the highway sprouted a whole network of secondary roads. And the second event that changed this area forever was that the price of gold spiked. And gold in the form of gold dust can be found in Tambopata. When I visited the second time, the government estimated there was about 30,000 illegal gold miners in the area. Now there's probably closer to 40,000. The miners are essentially changing the landscape from a rainforest to a desert, and the destruction is so great that it can be seen from space. And all this is going on in an area that is world renowned for its high biological diversity. World records in the number of birds and the number of butterflies have been found here. There's more avian claylix here than anywhere else in the world. And many scientists believe that Tambopata holds the last and final block of intact tropical rainforest in the world. So when I returned home from this trip, I felt an overwhelming responsibility that I had to do something, I had to get involved. And so I searched for a Canadian organization doing conservation in Tambopata so I could volunteer with them. But there wasn't one. There was an American group and there was a group from the United Kingdom. And that is what propelled me to start my own conservation group, Amazon Rainforest Conservancy, or ARC for short. And it took me 2 years to convince the Harper government to issue ARC charitable status. The Harper government was not friendly to issuing charitable status, especially to an organization wanting to do work outside of Canada. It was a long process. They would ask me for some information. I would provide it to them. They'd sit on it. They'd come back, ask for more information. This went on for almost 2 years. Finally, a friend of mine said, you need to go down there. You need to film the destruction. You need to show them what's going on and why this matters. And so that's what I ended up doing. And 2 months later, I received a letter in the mail that ARC received charitable status. And I'll never forget that day. It was incredible, but it was also really, really scary because that meant I actually had to do something. Once ARC received charitable status, then I raised enough money, essentially mostly through family and friends, to purchase our first piece of land to protect. So it was time to find that piece of land. And I knew that I wanted it to be land with ancient primary trees, the first growth trees. Most areas have been clear cut and it's all secondary forest. But for me, there's something about it being the first growth trees that I really wanted to protect. And that meant we had to look areas that were really remote, away from any towns, villages, and roads. So I went with a friend of mine, a forest engineer, to look at different pieces of land that were available to purchase. And of course, everything I saw I thought was amazing. This is it, this is the one. And he kept saying, no, no, not special enough. Finally, I had to go back to Canada, and he continued to look. And after a few months, I received a message from him. He was really excited. He said, I found the land. He said, it's unbelievable. He found a piece of land that had many ironwood trees that were still standing. And then he sent me a picture of him standing next to this great big tree. And he said to me, this is a tree that I thought had been logged to extinction. It's a type of cedar tree, and I'd never seen one before, and I thought they were gone. And in the picture, he's standing by the tree, and it's got a great big number 11 spray painted on it because the owner of the land was planning on chopping it down and selling it for money. He said, we have to buy this land, we have to save this tree, because these trees are only going to be known in photographs. He was also excited because he found the footprints and the scat of many endangered species on this land, such as jaguars, tapirs, anteaters, black caiman. He found the den of a giant armadillo, and he found the tracks of a large anaconda that was going through between ponds on the land. So that was ARC's first purchase in 2014. And in 2016, we raised enough money to buy a neighboring property. So we currently have 3,500 acres of land in our care, and we are committed to growing that. And I'm proud to say ARC is now a team of Canadians, Americans, and Peruvians all working together. And Ashley is on the Canadian Board of Directors. There you are. And she's a great asset to the team. Another one of our board of directors is here, Guy. Thank you, Guy. For all of you. So it's a lesson I'm glad I finally learned. To find your passion, find your purpose, and go for it. And have faith, because you never know where a certain road is going to take you or how things are going to be connected. And for me, it was my love for cats that eventually led me to starting this charity that does conservation in the Amazon rainforest. As a kid, I loved cats and kittens, and my older brother was severely allergic to cats, so I had to make do with befriending the neighbors' cats. Once I was old enough and had my own place, I immediately went to the Humane Society and adopted a cat. And then I started volunteering at this private cat shelter. I'd go once a week, feeding the cats, cleaning the litter boxes, socializing with them. And after a few years, the lady who ran this shelter came up to me and she said, I need to apply for the shelter to become a registered Canadian charity because people want to donate money to us, but they want a tax receipt. And she said, and one of the things to make that happen is I have to create a board of directors, and would you, Jana, be willing to volunteer and be on that board of directors? And I said, of course. Anyhow, that was 17 years ago, and that experience of seeing her go through the process and being on the board of directors is what gave me the courage to start my own Canadian charity, ARC. So get out there, try things, find your passion, and most importantly, don't let fear stop you from pursuing your dream. I am the perfect example. I was a scared little girl, a very cautious adult, and now I am a jungle warrior. If I can do it, anyone can. And Ashley's another example of someone who's made huge changes in her life. Her story is incredible and inspiring. I'm really looking forward to reading her book, Be the Change. Ashley is someone that we all need to know because she's something to tell us all, something we can all learn from her. Thank you for listening to me.